and welcome to the Bold Moves podcast, where I interview entrepreneurs that have inspiring stories. I'm your host, Angela Merzib, and our mission is to help you bridge the gap between ideas and action so you can make the bold move to take your life and career to the next level. Our guest on this show is a bright ray of sunshine. She is in the fitness industry, and she found herself at an impasse when all this COVID stuff happened. Her in-person classes really just crumbled and fell away, and she was left at a fork in the road. What do I do? She is someone that is always searching for answers and pushing herself to new limits, and that's what makes her a great entrepreneur and a great trainer. So I think you're going to learn a lot about how she transformed her business from in-person to virtual and how this challenge actually helped her to solve another really big problem that she was encountering in her business in a most unexpected way. Sometimes there's opportunity in even the darkest of places, and I'm not surprised that our next guest found it because, like I mentioned, she is just a beaming ray of sunshine and a ball of positivity. So let's dig in and get to know her. Hi, and welcome everyone. We're going to be talking today to Jacqui Mmonno. She is the founder of Rhythm Fitness Inc., which she established in Calgary in August of 2017. And then currently she is running Sweat Sessions, which she created in March of 2020 as a pivot away from working face-to-face with clients and to interacting with them virtually. Her fitness journey started in 2015, which quickly turned into a passion of wanting to help others. So today we're going to talk to Jacqui about her bold move to restructure her business. I know she was trying to solve one particular problem she was having with her old business model, and it seems like this was the catalyst to make that change. And we want to talk to her about her most recent pivot. So welcome to the show, Jacqui.
Hi, Angela. Thanks for having me today.
Great. It's good to have you. So I want to dive right in, and I want to ask you about just take us back a few years, rewind back over the last 5 years. You've sort of reinvented yourself a few times. Can you give us just a brief overview of your career and that time period?
Yeah. Prior to me getting into the fitness industry, I worked as a project engineer in a small engineering firm and in the oil and gas. So, as we know, when you live in Alberta or in Calgary, the engineering world or the oil and gas world can be a little bit more volatile. So, at the time, the recession was just kicking in 2014, 2015. I had work, but I didn't have work. It was all billable hours, and it was one of those. It was the time when I was at a very vulnerable stage in my life where I was wondering, is there something wrong with me? Is there something wrong with the work that I'm putting out? Why is this happening to me? And I thought I was the only person. And even though I know a whole lot of people were kind of laid off completely, at least I still had that range to come in if I had work. But that being said, my husband, now boyfriend then, he suggested I get into fitness. And I was like, what? No, what are you talking about? At the time, believe it or not, I was super shy. So I
I
was
don't
super
believe it,
shy. I could
actually.
not. Nobody does. I'm like, I swear. But I was like super timid, super shy. I literally could not even hold a conversation with more than two people that I had who I didn't know. So I was like, no, there's no way. So at the time, I liked the idea of fitness. I wasn't exactly the most, fit person in the world. So, I was always I grew up, a little bit overweight all my life. So even when he did suggest that, I was like, who's going to come to my class? Who's going to take me seriously? You know what I mean? You have all those self doubts.
Mhm.
Long
Totally.
story short, he basically signed me up for an AFLCA program, and he was like, "You going on Friday, this date?" I think it was December of 2015 or something like that. And I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Anyhow, that being said, long story short, the initial goal was to just become a spin instructor because I felt like if I was on the bike and I was just in my own little bubble, nobody can see me, especially if you're teaching a class. And there's a lady that basically was like, Jacqui, you'd be so good at group fitness. I was like, what? No, there's no way. So anyhow, I tried group fitness and I started mentoring with spa lady at the time. I think they're called something else now.
Yeah.
And I basically I saw myself basically progressing from this timid, self conscious person into the person I am now. Like the person I am now to the person I was then was just at two different people. Even when I look back, I'm like, who is this girl? Anyhow,
Wow.
2017, I decided to establish Rhythm Fitness Inc. This was August of 2017. I didn't know where I didn't know where I was going with it at the time. I didn't know if it was going to work, but I just had this vision in my head where I was like, I just want to take this to the next level. I want to either open up my own studio or help others, whatever the case may be, motivate people. I was really getting into the fitness thing, getting into the groove of things. Um, and Angela actually helped me set up my logo and everything else. You remember that,
I do remember that. We met in a coffee
Angela?
shop, and
Yeah,
that's where it all started.
that's all it all
Yeah,
started.
that's
So yeah. So that being said, at the time, my business strategy was to focus on corporate clients, basically providing services to people. Just because I came from that world where you work through your lunch, you come
yeah,
in at
right.
6 a.m., you work through your lunch, you probably leave at like 8 o'clock at night because there's always deadlines and this and that.
Mhm.
So just kind of having that experience of knowing that sometimes you need that escape. That's how I kind of
Mhm.
came up with the idea. And I was still kind of working in and out in the oil and gas. I wasn't full time in fitness at the time. Um, Up until 2018, November of 2018, when I decided to just take the leap because, you know, for some reason, my crazy mind was like, I see a vision in fitness. I'm going to make this work. This is the direction I want to take. And I decided to resign officially from
Mm.
my previous employer.
Wow, that must have been
Anyhow,
a scary decision. Hey?
it definitely was. It was nerve-wracking. I
Yeah.
literally walked around with my resignation letter in my purse for like 3 or 4 months. I didn't know
No
what to do with
way!
it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then every day I would come home and I'll change the date. And then I'm like, tomorrow's
Edit,
the day.
edit, edit.
And then I just never do it. Until, there was a moment where, the sign was so clear and I had to make a decision. I was like, okay, you can't keep juggling
Yeah,
because it was hectic, right? It was, I
yeah,
was juggling the two. It was two different worlds trying to merge them together and it just wasn't working.
exactly.
So that being said, that's when I took that leap. And for the most part, I worked, for amazing studios. I was a contractor for the most part. And I traveled a lot around the city. The schedule was not sustainable in terms of just being all over the place and always being on the move. You're paying for parking, you're doing this, like, and then it just ends up just not working.
Mhm.
And then thank goodness to not thank goodness, but COVID happened. And it
Right,
literally took me from that place of running around the city because that's the only thing I knew how, like, that's the only way I knew how to handle it to
right,
now thinking about the virtual
right.
world. And so initially started off as Facebook Live and Instagram Live. I did that for about 10 days until one of my good friends and one
Mm.
lady that also knows me was like, Jacqui,
Mhm.
you are so good at what you do. You put in so much work, you put in so much qualifications. Why are you giving this out for free?
Right.
And my goal, I mean, in fitness isn't necessarily to be like a billionaire. I mean, it would be nice.
It would, it would.
But I mean, my it would be, right? I'm sure you'd agree, right, Angela?
Oh, of course. Why not?
Yeah. So I then, they were like, why aren't you at least, asking for a small fee or whatever the case may be? And I was like, oh my goodness, where do I start? I didn't have the proper equipment. I mean, the only
Mm.
thing I had was my computer and maybe the natural light in the room. I don't
Right,
know.
right,
And I was like, okay, well, literally it was in a span of maybe a couple of days. I was like, okay, sweat sessions with Jacqui, let's do this. And
right.
then I put it out on social media and I didn't know who was going to even come on or who wasn't.
Right.
And and that's how it all started. And that was March 30th, I think. That's when my first
Okay.
paid live class started, and it's been 36 weeks now,
Wow.
and we're going strong. Yeah.
I think you raise a good point there. Like, I think, what you did well was you listened to people around you. Like, just Colin saw something that maybe you didn't necessarily, but you listened and you tried
Hmm.
it and you just took that next step. Right? We don't know
That's right.
everything. When we start a business, we don't know what we don't know, and we're gonna find out along the way. I know this too because I started my business 12 years ago, and there was so much
Yeah.
now I'm like, "Oh my goodness, how ignorant was I? I didn't know anything. I didn't even know how to set up an invoice for crying out loud," right?
That's right.
So you
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
take
The
that
little
next
things that we
step
take.
in faith that
Mhm.
you're gonna listen to the people around you, you're gonna find the help you need, you're gonna become that resourceful person to just make this work. And I love that you embody that so much
Thank
that you're
you.
just excuse me, you listen to the people around you, you take their advice and you're just solving problems just one step at a time. I think that's a
That's
key
right.
factor that you need to have when you're a business owner. Um,
That's right.
okay, so that's
Thanks,
the
Angela.
backstory.
That's the backstory. It's long,
um,
but I mean, I
that's
try to
long.
summarize.
Now you did also try to reinvent yourself and one other time to solve, like you said, the problem of you were constantly running around, you were paying for parking, just the math wasn't working. When you ended up paying yourself, just the math wasn't working out, right?
That's right.
Between the
Yeah.
time you had to just be in the car, not getting paid and all that. So I know you
Hmm.
tried to you were looking into buying a spin business in another city and you were also looking at living here in Calgary, but commuting to BC, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, Jacqui, I mean, maybe it'll work, but maybe it's crazy, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to do it."
Oh,
So tell us a little bit
yeah.
about that. I mean, I know you're trying to
Oh,
solve a
man.
very specific business problem.
Yeah. So, okay. So at the end of last year, I met this amazing lady, um, Tasha Bean, Marshall Bean, and she is just amazing. Like, she is a ball of fire, literally. Our energies just match so much, and I love her
Oh, I
so
could see
much.
that.
Uh, so I did her spin instructor training just because I needed a refresher. That's also another story for another day. I went through a phase where I did teach spin, and then I got to a point where I I started getting in my head and thinking that and thinking maybe what I'm doing isn't right. And and my passion for teaching it started, disappearing. And I
Mm,
needed that. And then I just stopped teaching it completely because I was just like, it's just, I need a breather from it. And a lot of spin is all about on the beat. You got to be
mhm.
on. You make a mistake. Sometimes it shows if you don't if you don't know how to BS yourself out of it, right? Like, so anyhow, that being said, so I met this lady, and I took that instructor training just to reboost my confidence. I mean, I'm already certified in cycle 3 for CA, and I've done a few more other courses. And but that was just me resetting myself. And that's also another thing. As an instructor, you almost have to go back and see and reevaluate what you're doing and what it is that it's getting you to a point where you feel like you can't do it anymore. That being said, I took this program with her. It was a whole weekend program, and it was just so much fun. It basically validated that, oh my god, I still love spin. I still
Mm.
want to get back into it. So I started chatting with Tasha, and Tasha was like, Jacqui,
Mhm.
you'd be such a great like spin studio owner. I was like, oh, I've always wanted to own my own studio. That would be amazing. My husband, Colin. um, so Tasha and I talk about this, and we had to and I was in. I was like, okay, let's do it. Um, so she gave me an idea of an area out in BC. I won't name it because just in case I ever want to go back and do it
Right,
again.
right.
Right now, things are on hold, but gave me this idea of this place in BC, and I was like, let's do it. I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew except for my husband, like nobody, because I have this thing in my head where if I vocalize it, sometimes
Mm.
I sabotage it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I
just
can
in my
see that.
head, right?
Yep.
So the only person that I knew was Colin and Tasha. So I made a move to look into it, do a thorough business plan, do market research. Colin and I drove out there for a
Mm-hmm.
few days, and assess the city. I met with like the one of the city, what's his name? Oh my goodness, I can't remember from the top of my head now. But anyway, one of the city officers there that knows a little bit more of the, he's like an economic development guy
Mm-hmm.
in that particular city. We did our homework, and I was like, okay, let's do this. Called around, made some business loan applications, had a few interviews with a few banks and all that jazz. And this took me up until almost mid-March. This is before COVID happened,
Yeah.
at least. I
Right
mean,
at
we
the
knew it was
beginning.
there,
Yeah.
but this was like before, like,
Any
it basically,
lockdown. Yeah.
right.
Right.
And I was just wholeheartedly in it. We were ready to go. There was a few humps on the road, but I was like, okay, I'll figure it out. I always do. I was like, I'll figure it out. Let's just get it done. And the goal was to hopefully get this place up and going by the end of 2021, or at least, fall of 2021. And then COVID happened.
Right. So that's when it all changed.
So that put
And
that's when it all changed. And
yeah.
I was like, would it be really wise
Yeah.
to go that route during this time? And that's how the whole, yeah.
Everything changed.
So
Well, thankfully it didn't happen mid, building something or installing,
right.
all this equipment and stuff like that. So
That's right.
COVID
Yeah.
happened, right? So
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
and then in Calgary here, we had, what was it, a 2-week period where they just basically
Right.
canceled
Yeah.
everything and
I remember it was like, I think it was March
it's
13th. And I
yeah,
think
it
that was
was.
the last time I taught a live class,
Yeah, it was.
like in-person class. And some places were really kind of like, okay, no classes, let's just figure it out, 2 weeks. And that's how it started. And that's why I was
And
like,
that's
okay, in the
been
meantime, I'll
now
just
9 months, right?
yeah,
2
now
weeks
it's been
turned into
like
9
nine
months, so
months. That's right.
so
Yeah.
I assume those, corporate fitness places, they haven't had anyone return yet. They're probably not
No,
allowed to, right. So
no, they're not allowed to. So
so you made the decision
yes.
pretty early to start doing these sweat sessions. So what do you think was the turning point where you knew it was time to pull the trigger on transitioning? Because I think sometimes people wait too long or they don't wait long enough. So what's the right timing? Do you have any advice on that?
So in terms of timing, like when I first started the sweat sessions, it happened almost immediately. Whether or not it was going to be a long-term thing, or at least till this point, I had no idea.
Of course.
But I'm a procrastinator by nature, so so for me to
You don't
actually
seem
just say,
like it, but okay.
I don't seem like it. Maybe this again, I tell myself things in my head that the
Okay. We'll just go with that for now.
we'll just go with that, I suppose.
Mm.
So there's never ever a right time to start anything or jump into it. And my motto this year was always jump in, figure it out,
Mm.
and everything else will fall into place.
I
So
love that.
2020 was my year where I was like, I gotta break the cycle. I gotta figure things out. I can't keep doing what I'm doing when I wasn't entirely
Mm.
happy doing it. I can't continue being burnt out. And even when I transitioned to the virtual, or like when we stopped teaching the live classes, there was a time where I had to let go of some classes because I was just like, I physically and mentally and emotionally couldn't do it
Sustain
anymore.
that.
And
Yeah.
and I was starting to I felt like I can't even talk anymore. I felt like if I didn't make some form of change, then my passion for even teaching was just going to
Mm.
disappear, and then we'll be right back where we started. So,
True.
so my advice is, if something feels right, if something feels like you don't
Mhm.
really have much to lose. I mean, you might have we lose some, we gain some in life, right?
True.
But just weigh out your options. If it requires you to start something with as little capital as you can, and you're able to, go for
Mhm.
it. and
Mhm.
then you learn along the way. I'm still learning. I still have technical
Oh,
difficulties in my classes. I still, like, sometimes, like, my headphones won't work, or like,
right.
oh, my webcam decides that it's just not going to work today, or sound just disappears, or the internet. And I feel like my internet is well, we've upgraded it over the last few months, only
Right.
because when
You
you
have
teach
to.
live classes, you have
Yeah.
to, right? But it was just one of those things where I thought we had good internet until we didn't, and then we had
Right.
to upgrade. And even the good ones, sometimes it
Oh,
disappears.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you have the right attitude. I love what you said before, jump
Thank
in,
you.
figure it out, and things will fall into place. That's
That's
exactly it.
right.
We don't know what
That's right.
all the steps are, but you can take the next most obvious logical step, right? I think
Yeah.
that's how
Yeah.
you have to go for it. So
Yeah.
so you're transitioned from in person to online. You had to do something. You knew it wasn't working anyway, so I guess this was just like the perfect storm for you to do something, try something. So what steps did you take from to do that, and how did you go about spreading the word and finding new clients? I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So, a lot of, I mean, social media is our pillar for the most part.
Mhm.
So when I first started, you know, I, I got out of my comfort zone in terms of posting stories on my Instagram and Facebook, and I just started talking to people. And it's like, hey guys, just so you know, I'm gonna be running sweat sessions on this day, and I just every day I was like posting things, hyping it up, trying to
Mhm.
like get into the groove of things. I mean, some people it just comes naturally, like they literally showcase their whole life, and I'm like, how do I do
Right?
that? Do I look okay? Right?
You always look more than okay. You're a little fashionista.
Thank you. I'll take it. Some days I wake up and I'm like, mm-mm. I should not
Mm.
be on camera. But no, I'm just kidding. But no, I used Facebook, Instagram,
Okay.
Insta stories. I started learning the art of posting all the time, advertising, and that was another thing too. I had this thing where I was initially when I first started, even the virtual stuff, or even before that, I had this thing where I was. It literally made me so nervous asking people for money.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
something that I've always been that way, even with my own family. Like if I was literally having some form of like financial struggle, I would just keep quiet and figure it out. And
Mhm.
I unless my mom was like, Jacqui, are you sure you don't need help with this? I'm like, no.
It's true, a
I'm
lot of us
good.
have the mindset about money is all,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
we need to deal with that as business owners, and a lot of business owners do, and, any
Yeah.
boot camp that I've been involved with, we talk about
Hmm.
mindset and about money issues in particular and asking for money and
Yeah.
just getting over that. I mean, if you provide something of value, it's just an exchange of energy is what people have told me, and I love that definition of when you
Exactly.
purchase something, it's just an exchange of value and energy. If they're getting
That's right.
value from what you're doing, then they're happy to pay for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And as long as you're putting in that good quality work as well,
Yeah.
because that's also another thing where sometimes I stress about the little things, but for
Mhm.
me, if we're going to be exchanging that value, you're paying me for my services. I need to make sure that I deliver
Definitely.
the best way I know how, and to make sure that you're satisfied, and
Mhm.
whatever that amount is, I want to make sure that my clients are satisfied with whatever it is. Um, I don't know. I mean, if you if you ask any of my clients, I'm always like checking in my email. Is everything okay? Like, and this is how I am. I just want to make sure I'm a people pleaser, to say the least, right? I
Yeah,
want to
you're
make sure everyone
hands-on
is
with your
comfortable in.
clients, which is good, and you're
Right.
gonna attract
Yeah.
those people that want that, like, not
Yeah, that's right.
not everyone is gonna resonate with every kind of business, but the people that you want
Mhm.
to attract, they're gonna resonate with that, and they're gonna come to you. So,
That's right.
well, I love that. I mean, show your personality on your social profiles. I think that's another way that you're gonna attract the right kinda crowd. They're gonna
Yeah.
see your sunshine and your energy, and you're gonna attract those types of people that you wanna work with too, right? So I
Thank
think
you.
social
Yeah,
media is so
absolutely.
great for that. That's like a key
Yeah,
tool for that kind of just showing
that's right.
who you are, right? And getting personal with
Mhm.
people. I think that's a great tool we
That's
all
right.
have at our disposal.
Yeah, right. And also another thing that I kind of found over time, over the months when I was doing this was, I started exploring the old school way of like, creating posters and just putting them all over the city. So
Yeah.
that's also another tool that I did.
Oh,
I
did
don't know if
you?
that will be helpful for anybody out there, but you just never know until you do it.
Did you find that you got much business from that? It's hard to track that unless someone tells you
Yeah,
that specifically they saw your poster.
that's right. So yeah, it was really, really hard for me to figure out I
Yeah.
mean, I know some people that know me message me and they were like, "Oh my God, I saw your poster at
Right.
this location." And I was like, "Oh, that's cute. At least I know people are seeing it."
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's fun. I mean, you have to try
Yeah,
things. That's the thing about marketing, especially if you're doing it by yourself and you just have to learn as you go, and it's a long game, right? And it's being consistent about it as
yeah.
well.
That's another
Um,
thing too. Yeah.
so how were you since we're talking about mindset with money, how were you able to stay positive through all this? I know you're a pretty positive person anyway, but um, were you able to stay positive and to just, stay with it, and did it all kinda start working out right away, or did it take a while, or what were you thinking? What was in your head when you were doing all this?
So okay, so I mean, money is so hard to talk about. I mean, who wants to talk about finances, right? Um, you know, I always try to make sure that, whoever I talk to, whether it's a friend, whether it's a client, I try to radiate positivity as much as I
Mhm,
possibly can. I mean, even if I'm going through hardship in terms of finances or whatever personal thing that goes on in my life. Um, and you know, let's be honest, when you start out in fitness, um, finances are the biggest issues, right?
right.
We all get into it, and you start working, contracting out, and maybe sometimes you're not compensated for what you're worth, or I mean, whoever you're contracting out to, unfortunately, they also have to make money, so
Mhm,
they can't necessarily pay what you would ideally need to be paid. And then there's expenses that are associated with that: gas, parking, you
mm,
know, lunch, whatever the case may be, peace of mind, or whatever the case may be. And in reality, as a human being, if you're in a fitness industry, teaching 5, 6 classes a day might be the best way to go, but
that's hard on your
it's
body.
not sustainable. It's
No,
not sustainable, and it's hard
no.
on your body. And that's another
Yeah,
thing that I find that, unless you're in it, you don't realize how much work and how much it
mm,
drains an individual. So anyway, going back to finances, because I'm pivoting completely now from our from our conversation here.
that's okay.
Going back to finances, it how do I manage to to keep myself on a positive light? I try to set myself intentions. When I wake up in the morning, I'm like, even
Mm,
if I know, let's say something is due, or maybe something is a struggle, I wake up in the morning, I'm like, okay, I set an intention. This is what's going to happen. This is how I'm going to manifest this certain
mhm,
thing. And I I try to hold on to that piece to get me through the day, or get me through the week, or get me through the month. And again, I figure it out. Like we most of us, I'm sure we figure it out eventually. I'm lucky enough that I do have a wonderful husband that decided to just say, you know what, whatever you want, I'll support you. So he does help out where he can, but I'm that type of person where I need to do this myself. I need
mhm.
to figure it out. So financially, it is hard. I actually, beginning of 2020, going back to when I decided to like set myself these goals and say, okay, this is the year. I'm jumping in, feet first. Let's go. I printed out a check. I mean, a lot of people might say, yeah, manifesting the universe, especially if you're on the
Mm,
spiritual side, it doesn't necessarily, correlate with, the religion or whatever. But that's besides the point. I printed this fake check and I wrote on it $100,000 by the end of December 31st.
wow. Hey, you need to do that though, honestly.
I
Like,
need to do that.
well,
Whether or not I get there, at least it pushes me to to strive for that.
it's
And
true. I mean,
that's
it's a simple, technique that I don't know, have you ever played sports? I know you're in the fitness world, but have you ever played, like,
yeah.
t sport or team sport or even individual sport? I know I
The
have,
Yeah,
and,
yeah, no,
one
the
of
only
the
thing that I've maybe done is swimming, but no, not
okay.
really.
One of the
Yeah,
techniques when you have, like, a coach for something like that is they'll get you to really visualize, winning the game or making that shot, right? It's also about visualizing where you wanna go, because if you can't
yeah,
visualize it, how are you gonna get there? So I think that that was an interesting
yeah,
choice for you to
yeah.
make.
It's definitely so I got it, and I mean I didn't come up with this by all means, but there's this book called The Secret.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard
Um
of that. Yeah.
oh my goodness, what's the author? I mean, I can look it up and let you know in a moment here, but a friend of mine who happened to also own a studio, and I worked at her studio. She started reading these books, and she was telling me about it, and they're all about positivity and mindset and
Mhm.
setting your intentions. And then I study. So I do a lot of audio books, just
Mhm.
because if I read a book, especially if my day is hectic, I will fall asleep.
Me too. I'm
I
that
love
way
to
too.
read, but
Me too.
like literally it'll be like, okay, Jackie, nap time.
Yep,
Even if the book is really powerful and interesting, I need audio so that
right.
I'm able to. So sometimes I will listen to it and it'll pump me up. But anyway, so I started listening to that book, The Secret, and that's where I got that manifestation of,
Right.
setting your intentions. And once in a while, I mean, I finished it like within maybe a week because I was just listening to it 24/7 in my car, in my head, like everywhere I go. This was earlier this year. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I started reading the other series of books. And so that's where I got it from. And once in a while, I go back to that because sometimes, again, I'm human. I go through waves where
Yeah.
there's times
But
where things are tough, and you even your mind just shuts down and you're just not able to to
mhm,
accomplish what you can. But you just have to find what works with you and what grows. Some people meditate, some people
mhm,
go for long hikes and walks. You know, for me, it's just setting my intentions, listening to mindset books, and
mhm.
trying to just remind myself that what, you're doing okay, even though sometimes I'm hard on myself, but
No,
but
for
I have to remind myself that, you know, there's only one of me, and
mhm. And it's a
right.
process
So
of growth, and you're
yeah,
wise to take counsel from people and read books and constantly be growing, because that's how you become better at what
that's
you do
right.
and what you offer and how you attract better things. I
Hmm.
think it all starts with mindset, and I used to be one of these people that was like, "Okay, just get I want, like, the tactics," right? Everybody just always just wants the tactics, but it honestly
Hmm.
does start with what you think. There's a saying, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right,"
Yeah,
and it's so true.
that's so true.
It's
That
all
is
about your
so
mind,
true.
right?
It's
It's all
it's all about anybody can do what they set themselves to do. If you believe it, you will get it.
Yeah, and if you fail along
Right?
the way, it was just a stepping stone
It's
to the next
Yeah,
thing.
it's life. You learn,
Just
right?
had to
Yeah,
go
it's
through
it's
that.
another hump. Yep, that's
Yeah.
right. I mean, I feel like my life has always been like that, where it's like, okay, bump on the road. Okay,
Oh,
Jackie, pick yourself up.
totally.
Let's go.
Especially if you're an entrepreneur, you can't be afraid of
Yeah,
failure. Like, I don't know, I know I've read stories about other famous entrepreneurs, and they've had, like, 100, 200 failed experiments before they hit the thing, right, that made them famous, that we all know them for. It's
yep,
just the way it is. Nobody just there's no overnight fame, there's no overnight success story. That's how it
yep.
works.
That's right.
One thing throughout this whole pandemic that I've been grateful for is, since everything has become virtual, I'm able to meet with and connect with people from all over the world, and I feel like my community has grown that way. Have you seen any blessings in disguise through all of this?
Yeah, I feel like I've met incredible, like some of the clients that I have now, like people that I would have never ever met, probably in just going to the studios, because that was just not the studio that they would go to, because they maybe live across the city or they live across the country.
Mhm.
Um, the blessing behind it is just meeting those kind-hearted human beings that you're like, oh my gosh, why aren't we best friends? Well, but that's because you live somewhere else.
Right.
We will never have run into each other if it wasn't because of what we're doing now virtually. And another thing, like for me, with COVID, I find that it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. You know, COVID isn't a good thing. You
No.
know, us going through a global pandemic that we're going through. I mean, it's been a whirlwind for a lot of people,
Mhm.
mentally, emotionally, even physically. Um, and you know, I don't ever want to put that side of things down in any way. But I mean, blessing would be I wouldn't be where I am now with the the line of work that I've decided to
Mhm.
take, the streamline that I've decided to go through. Um, it's pushed me to get out of my shell and not second guess myself
Mhm.
and just go for what I want and what I think will work best for me. And I still have a long way to go. I but I I know where I need to be, and I just don't know how to get there yet, but I'm figuring it
Right.
out. And hopefully 2021 will be the year where now I kind of put more things into action and yeah.
Awesome. Well,
And
you're
just grow
doing
a little bit
great.
bigger.
And yeah, I
Thank
think
you.
that was the sometimes that's the push we need is just something to happen and for us
Mhm.
to start to have to rethink, okay, well, now how am I going to respond to this? And that's all you did.
That's
Um
right.
what I mean, it could be through this or before this or whatever, but I like to ask the folks that I have on the podcast, what is the biggest lesson you've ever learned, either in business or personal?
Mm, I mean, going back to asking for money was one. Two is just asking for help and just knowing. I feel like one thing that I always struggled with was I'll figure it out. And
Mhm.
therefore, I wanted to do everything myself. And for
Mm.
me, I have this thing in my head: if you want it done right, do it yourself, kind of mentality. It doesn't quite work, especially if you're running a business.
Yeah.
You're your own bookkeeper. You're your own secretary. You know what I mean. Your own instructor. Your own personal trainer. Blah blah blah
Mhm.
blah blah. The list goes on. Um, One thing, the takeaway. I mean, the one thing that I feel like I've learned to do is seek out for more help.
Mm.
Um, I have I have someone, a student out in Vancouver that's helping me out with some of my social media stuff and just the little things and emails and stuff like that. But it was a step that I needed to take for me to be able to grow.
Mhm.
Um, just because it just wouldn't, like, I can't do it all. So I just need
Right.
to figure out how to seek for the necessary help where I can.
Mhm. Mhm. That's how
And
you
also
grow.
just believing in myself. And also believing in myself because
Yeah,
it's that one is still like a work in progress for me. And
it
I,
always is.
yeah.
Imposter syndrome. Just think about it this way, and I've heard it said, real imposters, they don't have imposter syndrome because 'cause they're actually imposters. Only the people that, are really good at what
Yeah.
they do have that because they think,
Yeah.
um, they think less of themselves because you always are trying to get better. So,
Yeah.
you're always behind, and you probably are, but as long as more than the people that, you're helping, then you're fine. You're helping
That's
them,
right.
right? To get
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
that, and then you're always growing. So you're always stepping up, stepping up, stepping up.
That's
I
right.
like to ask a few branding questions to my
Ah!
guests. So
Okay. All
just
right.
a
Let's do
just
it.
a brief
Hopefully, I can answer them.
just a little brief statement. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything extensive, but what does
Okay.
rhythm fitness and sweat sessions stand for as a
What does
brand?
it stand for as a brand? So Sweat Sessions, one. Um, Sweat Sessions basically I came up with that because every single class that I feel like I teach or I lead, we
Mhm.
always just end up just in buckets of sweat. I know I do.
That's good.
So I mean, Sweat Sessions is not an original name that I just woke up and came up with it. But I mean, we all know that those sessions got sweaty, and So that's where the sweat session with Jacqui. So it was identifying with the community that I was trying to build. So I mean, rhythm fitness, as we both know when we first started kind of chatting about it, with my logo, if you've seen the colors of the logo, that colorful and that flowy, it was trying to identify unity, inclusive, oh my goodness, blah, what's that word?
Inclusivity? I think that's a word.
Yes, that's right. I'm
You
getting
got
tongue
it.
twisted. Our classes are, I run my classes on the beat most of the time, not all the time, because some classes, for example, hit and stuff like that, the
Yeah.
beat may be a little too, either a little slower or a little too fast, and I don't want people to feel like they need to keep up with the beat all the time. So I try to, allow for, not allow, but give permission for people to be able to listen to their bodies. And the goal, and our, the goal for our, at least the way we want to present ourselves is, it's for all fitness levels. You
Mhm.
listen to your body, you go at your pace. I will always give modifications wherever we go, and just don't take yourself too seriously and just have fun with it. Especially with our cardio kickboxing classes, those ones tend to be a little, they're really on the beat. So sometimes,
Oh.
even I miss a few couple of steps here and there.
Mhm.
So I always tell people, don't take yourself seriously. Let's have fun as long as you're moving. My goal is just to, hopefully, if you're working from home, get yourself off your chair or your desk
Mhm.
and take 45 minutes out of your day. If you only have 30 minutes, maybe just do the 30 minutes of the class, and just move your body. We all know that we live in a world where, things happen. We get overweight, there's heart issues, cancer, whatever the case may be. My goal is to keep everybody as mobile as possible, even for your mind. It helps with stress, especially during these times. And yeah, that's what our brand right now stands for, and I stand by it. And yeah.
Well, those are all amazing things, and I know you're doing an awesome job at all that.
Thank you.
So on the flip side, what does your brand stand against? What are the enemies of your brand?
Mm, we are not surgeon. I'm not a drill surgeon. We don't say you have to do this. I will not do such a thing ever. But
You
anyway,
kill people with
um,
kindness, it sounds like.
yes. So yeah, so I mean, our brand, we don't judge. We, again, that we don't, everybody has a story. Everybody has their struggles. We don't base our picking our clients based on where they come from or who they are. We are very, very, like, we want everyone to feel included, no matter who you are, what you have, whatever you stand for, right? But we try to make sure that everybody is included. Everything is filled with kindness, support. We're a community. I say it all the time to my clients. I'm like, you guys, we've built such a great community.
Mhm.
And that's all I ever want them to feel like. I want them to come on and know that everybody that's on screen, whether they have their cameras on or off, we're all a community. And even if they have them off and I can see you, I know that you feel included no matter what.
Nice.
So
I love that. I love that. You meet people
yeah,
where they're at and you include them. I
yeah,
think that
yeah,
is the mark of a great brand. When you build that community and people feel like they're part of something, that's when they're gonna come back and want more from your brand. So
that's
that's
right.
a key takeaway for people listening. Who what other brands would your brands be friends with if you set up a play date with another brand? Who would it be?
Oh, there's so many brands out there, and that's a really challenging question, Angela.
That's
But
what I'm here for.
I know, right? But again, again, with our brand, we're all about getting things done. There's never the right time or right place to start. You start when you start, and that's just how we work. And so a brand that I think we would be besties with, and I honestly love that brand, and I'm sure a lot of people out there know that brand and they love that brand because it's a global brand, and that's Nike. Nike is they have that just do it slogan, and they're all about moving, empowering women, empowering different, races, and you know what I mean, that out there, that in the communities, right? So I feel like I'll just be our brand would be just besties, maybe like a little mini bestie
Right.
running around behind them, right? Because that's what the goal of our brand is to try and reach communities wherever they may be. We're virtual, so we're trying to, target whether you're in I'm originally from Botswana, whether you're in Botswana, whether you're in South Africa, whether you're in India, whether you're in the
Yeah.
US, I want us to be everywhere and come in as a global nation, right? And not because we're a Canadian company, but we want to make sure that we're a global company. So that's who I would pick in terms
Nice.
of
Nice.
being besties. Just because they're big enough, and why not?
Why not? Who doesn't want to be besties with Nike?
I
But
know, right?
right? So yeah, get
That's
up,
right.
get sweaty, get it done with Jacqui. Um,
That's right.
was there anything else I forgot to ask you?
Mm, I don't know.
I mean,
Classes?
there's
I don't
lots we
know.
could talk about. Yes. Okay. So I was going to ask
Yeah.
you, the last thing we're going to talk about is where can people find you online, and
Oh, wait,
just
that's right.
briefly describe some of the classes that people can take from you, and where they can find you, and where they can sign up. I want to mention that Jacqui has come out with a set of resistance bands and some other products as well.
That's right.
So tell us a little
Yep.
bit about your online presence, where we can buy your stuff, where we can find your classes, and where we can connect with you online on social.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So we have our website. It's actually new and improved website, and it's rhythmfitness.ca. And so basically, that's pretty much where you can find our class packages. And you can either go weekly, every 4 weeks, or every 8 weeks, depending on everyone's comfort level. Some
Right.
people prefer to just pay week by week and kind of play by ear. And you can also find me on Instagram at fit.jacqui. So my name, I guess we'll kind of write it
Yeah,
out
I'll write
because
these all out
it's
in the description below the video.
that's right. And you can also find us on Facebook. We do have two different. I mean, even with Instagram, I have the Rhythm Fitness Instagram, but just find me on fit.jacqui. That's where you'll find most of the information.
Okay.
It's more active, and as well as Facebook, where I think my handle is at jackie.yyc.
That's right. Yeah.
Or if you search Sweat Sessions with Jacqui, there's a page on that. And right now we're actually running a countdown, 24 days
Yay.
countdown to the holidays. So we have a private Facebook group. It's free for everybody to join. So if you're
Nice.
interested in joining in,
Yeah.
it's never too late. You just join in, and it's a cumulative workout where one day we add an exercise
Oh,
or whatever
nice.
the
I
case
might
may
have
be.
to join you
Yeah,
on that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, please. I think I did send you an invite, so check it out.
Okay. Okay. I will.
Yeah. And so yeah, with my products, you
Yeah.
can find them on our Shopify store.
Okay.
So I'll also kind of leave the link for you
Sure.
to post. And but our website will be also able to purchase our products through that
Oh,
on the
good.
shop tab. Yeah.
Nice. And the sweat
Mhm.
sessions, are they on YouTube, or how do, like, what's the tech
So
behind
sweat session so yeah, so we run our sweat sessions through Zoom at the
Okay.
moment.
Oh,
And
gotcha.
yeah. So
So it's a
right now
private
the run
link that you
yeah,
send out
for the
when you sign up.
that's
Okay.
right.
Got it.
That's right. Yeah.
Got it. Well, thank you,
Mhm.
Jacqui. You're always a big ball of sunshine to talk to, so
Oh,
it's always fun talking to
we
you.
should do it again. I actually had a lot of fun considering how nervous I was in the beginning.
Oh, you don't sound nervous at all. You did great. So
Fake
thank
it
you
till
for
you make it,
joining
right?
me. Yeah. Well, it's good. We know each other a little bit,
Awesome.
so
That's
it's
right.
easy
Exactly.
talking to
Yeah,
somebody you know. But yeah, check
that's
out
right.
Jackie's website, her sweat sessions, and her products. You can find her at rhythmfitness.ca, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. Bye, Angela.
Bye.